Hey everybody, Mike with Long Range with the Lilies. Doing a video today on how Keely and I travel and fly to matches and what our process is and how we pack. We get a lot of questions on this. We do end up flying to a lot of matches, especially me competing in the PRS as well as the NRL. Um, Most of the PRS matches that are available to me, or especially the AG Cup matches, they're all flying. I don't have the ability to drive to any of them, so we end up flying. So I wanted to kind of take you guys start to finish through our process. So the first thing we do is we look at where the match is, where the range is, where we're going to get hotels, etc. You know, how far it is from the airport where we're going to fly into. One thing I highly recommend is reaching out to the match director and kind of getting their recommendations. They have that local lay of the land. They can tell you, for example, like what hotels to avoid, maybe even what town to avoid, what's closest to the range. And a lot of them have those little hidden gems of information that can really make or break your trip, such as like, hey, there's this great Airbnb just down the road from the range, and then you can get together with a couple of your buddies, split up some costs and save some money and live a little better as opposed to a hotel. So after we figure out, you know, where the match is, where we're staying, the other thing we look at is like the time frame. So is there a train up day? You know, what time does the range close on 0 day? I always want to fly into a place, check my zero. I never just want to show up to a match, you know, take my rifle out of the case off the plane and just hope that it works out. I know Morgan King's done that a couple times and he's won some matches, so maybe I'm overthinking it. But for me, for my peace of mind, I really enjoy showing up the day before, checking zero, you know, send a couple rounds at some long range targets if it's available to me, and just make sure that everything's squared away. So knowing that information allows me to back plan my airline ticket. So for example, when I went to Oklahoma, it was a pretty tight window. The range was about 2 hours away from the airport, and the range closed at 3, which means I needed to be there. You know, if I wanted an hour to shoot, I needed to be there at 2 hours away from the airport is, you know, noon. And then from noon, I had to find a plane that arrived before that and gave me time to get a rental car and everything else. So it's a lot of really backwards planning. And in order for me to backwards plan that out, it ended up with me leaving Seattle at like 3 in the morning, just because I had to get there by a certain time. You know, with work and everything, I would have loved to have left the day before to give myself that maximum time, but it just wasn't available. Luckily, the War Rifles trip was a little bit easier. I was able to take some time on the front side to go out to the East Coast and shoot with a friend and hang out with his family. So I wasn't really in a big rush to get out there. But so like I was saying, backwards planning that ticket to where you arrive, make sure you give yourself some fluff in case something goes horribly wrong with your rental car or the airport or whatever, to get in, get your stuff, get to the range and get zeroed. I really highly recommend that, just for your own peace of mind. There's nothing worse than being anxious about, you know, is my rifle going to shoot? With everything else that you have going on, you know, that is my rifle on zero, or did the baggage handler chuck it, you know, 50 feet across the tarmac and bounce my rifle off everything. So when we're looking at tickets, we look at different airlines. So there's a couple airlines that I really like using and a couple that I don't. I'm not a travel agent, but these are just the things that we have found. Airlines that tend to be the most firearm friendly. Southwest Airlines, very, very friendly, especially if you're military. Alaska Airlines has a really good baggage policy. And then also Delta is one of my favorite airlines to fly on, but they are the most stringent when it comes to baggage fees, costs, and everything else associated with that. And I'll get into that here right now. So when you're looking at what you're going to take to a match, the biggest primary consideration that you need to look at is how much does my stuff weigh? How many bags am I taking? And what are that particular airline's policies? For example, Southwest, you know, you get 2 check bags for free. With Alaska Airlines, I'm, you know, lucky enough to be active duty military, and they, for leisure travel, will give me 5 free check bags, up to 50 pounds, which is a lot. Delta Airlines also will give free check bags to military, but you have to be on orders. So you need to be really careful about that. They will absolutely hit you with those baggage fees. If you're not on orders, they don't recognize leisure travel. But for everybody else, 50 pounds tends to be the universal limit across all the airlines. So make sure that you're weighing your stuff before you go. Here we have my case that I took to Pennsylvania, and this is pretty much how I took it in. The way I do it is I pack everything up, and then I, weigh myself on just a bathroom scale, and then I weigh myself holding the case, and that will give me my weight after I subtract out my body weight. I always leave myself probably like a pound, potentially 2 if I'm a little nervous, depending on the accuracy of your scale. What you don't want is to show up at the airport and you're a half a pound over and they hand you a huge bill. Delta Airlines, for example, if you're overweight, it's $100 per bag that is overweight, just right off the top. Which brings me to a great point, a lesson I learned actually from some other buddies that shoot in this sport and travel a lot, is something that is worth considering is when you look at airlines and their baggage policies, and this is where the airlines kind of differ a little bit, it may be worth your time and effort and money to upgrade to first class. First class gets significantly more baggage for free and typically get a higher weight limit as well. So do the math on if you're flying on an airline and you have to pay per bag, and then you're paying overweight fees or whatever, it may be cheaper to buy that first class ticket and be under those fees, and you're going to get a better seat, you're going to get better food, better service, you get off the plane quicker, all those other things. So definitely look into that. When you are packing and committing to going to the airport to fly with firearms, something that you absolutely have to do is recognize that this is a process that you don't have a say in. The rules are what they are, and despite common sense, logic, your personal feelings on the matter, you may be encountering some individuals that don't care about any of those things. These guys are just doing what they're told. They don't have a lot of capacity to vary from those rules. Like, you may get the guy who's willing to kind of look the other way or understand your situation and let stuff through or let stuff slide. But you need to be prepared that you absolutely may get the guy who's doing the exact opposite of that, who is having a bad day and is just waiting to enforce the rules on you. And, unfortunately, he's got the letter of the law on his side. By letter of the law, I mean TSA regulations, airline regulations, everything else. On that note, if you run into one of those people, arguing with them, getting upset, stuff like that is not going to help you. So the biggest thing I can say is, when you're going to fly with firearms, you just have to commit yourself, resign yourself that, you're playing in other people's fields, you're playing somebody else's game. Just go with it and commit yourself to just being part of that process, because you're not going to change the process. So some things on packing. So I have my rifle case here. When I pack it, the first thing I do is I'm ensure that I'm using some sort of really good lens cover system like I have here, because stuff in here shifts around, and the last thing I want is something sliding into my scope. The other thing I do is I pack it to where the scope is up towards the carry handle. The reason for that is when somebody's carrying this, I want gravity to shift everything away from my scope. I don't want my scope banging on the top of this when the baggage handler is chucking my stuff around. If you're ever on a chance on the plane and you can look out and see where they're offloading your baggage, my recommendation is just don't look, because it's just going to make you angry. They are not gentle with their stuff, guys. They're just chucking it on there as fast as they can, and it just is what it is. So what I tend to do is I try to pack anything that is expensive or fragile in this case. So, my laser rangefinder, my binoculars that I stole from Keeley from this trip. Sorry, I didn't talk to you about that, but whatever. Anyway, so took her binoculars. I keep them in the padded case inside the foam so she doesn't kill me when I ding them up. I did pack one of my ammo in here. Just for ammo, the rules and regulations are it needs to be in a case designed to hold ammo. I use these standard reloading cases you can find in any store. Something I do, and I ensure that I do, is I put this foam in here in the lid, and it just protects my knee plats and my bullets, because they're always getting shaken around. So That's how I pack my ammo. I know some guys that have packed in ammo wallets like this. This is what I use at matches. Even though I take the blue case, I still take these. They're great to shoot with. They're convenient in my bag. So some people would argue that these are made for shipping ammo. They're made for ammunition. I will tell you, you're running a risk. I know several people that have packed with these and then have gotten through a couple times and they haven't had any problems. And then they went one day to a match and flew, and they showed up and all their ammo had been seized and did not make the trip with them. Guys, we spend a lot of money to go to these national matches if you're flying, between plane tickets, rental cars, the costs associated with travel, the national match fees, any, fees if you're doing a G Cup, all this stuff. It would be terrible for all that to go down the drain because you insisted on packing in this. Again, I know guys that have gotten away with it for years. I also know guys who've shown up to matches and had their ammo seized by TSA en route, and they were kind of screwed when they got to the match. So use that at your own risk. These boxes have always gone well for me, and I haven't heard anybody getting these taken. Just ensure that you're taping over them so they don't pop open. And also, they're heavy, so think about when you're putting it in your case, how many rounds are you taking? What's the weight going to be? Another thing that Keely and I have done in the past is ship our ammo out ahead of us. If we've been proactive enough to reload and to get everything ready prior to the match. Probably a problem for Regina, who still believes that the fresh ammo is the best ammo. She likes to wait till the last minute. But if you can ship your ammo ahead of you to the match director, generally that's a good policy. It's there waiting for you when you get there. It's less things you have to carry to the airport. In Keely and I's case, if we're going to a national match, you're talking about 500 rounds, which is, a significant amount of ammo to cart around. The TSA rules are 11 pounds of ammo. I know some guys that kind of flirt with that rule or push past that rule. I know I've done it once or twice as well. Just know that the rule is 11 pounds of ammo, and it has to be in a lockable case. So if you put them in your rifle case, that's fine. Just again, we're all shooting heavy rifles now. The ammo is pretty heavy too. Watch your weight limit. Generally, the most you can get in your rifle case and still make weight is 200 pounds is what I'm finding. 200 rounds. So if you're not packing it in your rifle case, it needs to be in a lockable case, and that lockable case can go in another soft bag. So another technique that I do is I'll box them in a locked case. I will put them in a large duffel bag with like clothes and other stuff around it. That's fine. TSA is fine with that as long as it has a lock on it. So once I've packed my rifle case and everything's good to go, I seal it up. There's a couple different schools of thought on this. I know some guys that lock it right there at home and then take it into the airport. When they get to the counter, you got to unlock it, declare your firearm. I personally don't do that. I leave the locks off, and then I take it up and declare it. And then once I fill out my form and lock it, and then off it goes. So with that being said, let me talk about that. So when you get there, you get to the airport, you're carting your rifle case through the airport. Depending on where you're flying out of, like for me, flying out of Seattle, I always get, some looks and stuff like that. San Francisco would probably be even worse. But, it's not that big a deal to go through the airport with your firearms case. So you're going to go to the counter. You're going to say, hey, I have a firearm to declare. They're going to give you a form, something similar to this. You fill it out. One goes in your rifle case, and hold on to the other one. Do not lose this, because this is one of the things that they're going to ask you along with your baggage claim ticket, that if for whatever reason you're separated from your rifle, that you're going to have to show this to claim that rifle. So you're going to go, you fill out the form. It's generally, I haven't had any issues yet. The ticket agents are used to it. They've seen it. You put the form in there, you seal it up, you lock it. And this is kind of where I've run into, this is where the process diverges. Airport to airport, airline to airline, there's always little variances or little differences in the way they do things. Again, just remain flexible. Whatever the process is that day, just commit to doing it. So in Seattle, for example, what they do is they say, okay, take your case over to the TSA checkpoint over there. You go back there, the TSA agent opens your case. He'll swab around it with a swab, and what it is detecting chemicals or explosives. Don't worry about, you know, smokeless powder, setting that off or anything like that. They're looking for explosive compounds, and any of the stuff we use for reloading or anything like that is not going to set it off. So one of the things I have noticed is make sure that your foam in your case comes out of your case. As you can see here, mine's kind of loose in here and it comes out. What they're going to do is they're going to look underneath that. So they'll close my case, they'll flip it over, and then they'll look behind this piece up here as well. It's one of the things that they have to do. I know a lot of guys with those really cool custom laser cut foam cutout cases where they've glued this in there, and that is a no-go in some TSA guys. They will rip that stuff apart and they will screw up your case because they have to be able to swab behind it. So that's another tip, is to leave this loose. That way it's just easier for you. So after he swabs everything, looks at it, they'll close it up, lock it, and it'll go on its merry way. Other airports I've been to, for example, I just flew out of Raleigh, and I know Portland does this as well. They, at the ticket counter, once you you put your declaration in there and lock your case, they will throw it on the conveyor belt and they'll tell you to wait. Some airports will actively come out and say, hey, you're good to go when they're done with it. And some just give you a time limit. Hey, wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And if you're not, if we don't come out and see you, then you're good to go. So what's happening is that rifle case is going back to the back where you can't see it back there in baggage, and then TSA is going to inspect it there. So here's where kind of a problem is for some people. A lot of times they will ask you for the key to your lock, and TSA regulation actually says you're not supposed to give that key to anybody. So now you're in the situation where they need to open your rifle, you're not there. When I'm in an airport that does that, one of the things I ensure I do is I take a quick video of the contents of the case at the ticket counter there. So the background has the ticket counter and everything else. It's kind of proof that everything was there when I let go of it. And then, you know, I'll give the combo to them so they can open it. I know some guys that have fought that, said, no, you're not opening this without me there. It kind of turns into a big rigmarole. Just know that that's probably not going to go well. You can stand your ground, and, you know, ultimately most of the guys I know have been able to go back there when they open their case and be there present. I know of one instance where they were like, okay, fine, you're not flying on our airline then. So just know that that is a risk you take. Anyway, so typically you send it off, you sit out there 15-20 minutes. If nobody comes up to you, then you're released to go through security. One of the things I do when I'm flying with a firearm, and that happens, and I wasn't there for the inspection, is make sure you are listening to every overhead announcement, because what's going to happen if there's a problem, and your luck is like mine, you're already going to be through security when they call your name. And then if you miss that, they may hold your stuff and not send it on your flight. And now you're completely separated from your stuff. Just make sure you're kind of paying attention to that stuff. Another pro tip is do not, I can't stress this enough, do not pack your game changer bag in a case that is locked. When they send it through the scanners, that game changer bag, the fill that we use in those things, they can't see through it on their little machines, and they always want to inspect it by hand. The best solution I've had is I try to take my game changer and my carry-on. One, it's a lot of weight in my checked baggage. Two, if I take it with me, I can just throw it in my backpack. And when I go through TSA, they're always going to open your backpack. They're always going to pull it out. You know, most of the time they're going to say, what is this? You're going to say it's a bag filled with sand or fill. It's not a big deal. They'll swab it, they'll check it, and then they'll release you on your way. If you lock it in your case, it will go through, it'll get scanned, you'll go through security, and you'll get all the way to your gate, and then they will call you. You'll have to come back out through security, unlock your case, usually with the cops and like 3 TSA agents there, and then they will inspect it. Then you have to re-close up your case, go back through security. It's a giant pain in the butt. Which brings me to a great point of when you are traveling with a firearm, please leave yourself some extra time to get to the airport. If you're running late and you are, you know, scrambling just to get through and make your flight, that is 100% going to be the time that you run into problems and you run into the TSA agent who's having a bad day or whatever, and you don't make your flight, all because of this. So make sure that you're doing that. When you get on your plane, some airlines will update your app on, you know, hey, your bag is loaded. I highly recommend doing that. Delta, I know, is great about that. It's really comforting to me. Maybe I'm just a worrier that I know when my rifle got loaded on the plane. So we get on the plane, you know, you fly to your destination. Here's where a couple things happen differently. So typically what happens is your baggage will come out on oversized baggage. There'll be an agent there who will need to see a photo ID to release it to you. Other places, it will go directly to the airline's office and you have to go present photo ID there. I have been to 2 airports, New Orleans and another regional airport, where my firearm just came out on the carousel. Like anybody else's bag. If I hadn't been there, somebody easily could have got that and walked away with it, and there was no accountability there whatsoever. So it was kind of shocking to me. So make sure when you get off the plane that you get down there ahead of everything. Make sure that you are there when the bags start coming out, because you don't want somebody walking off with your firearm. That is a huge deal. And I'm kind of shocked with all the rules and regulations that we have, that's even a thing, but it is at some of these smaller regional airports. So you sign for it and then you can leave with your firearm. It's just that simple. I highly recommend not opening your case in the baggage area. That will freak a lot of people out. I know some guys want to check to make sure that all their stuff is there. There are certain airports, Seattle, for example, when you fly on Delta, they do this thing where they zip tie your case shut before they give it to you. It's like this cheap little zip tie that does nothing, but it's one of their policies. So they don't want you opening that in the airport at all. And this is a result of that guy that shot up a baggage area after getting his rifle off of the airline. So, you know, I do recommend, though, as soon as you get out, you get to your car, open your stuff up, make sure everything's still there. Because once you leave, it becomes hard to go back and get it. So that's pretty much it. That's all we do when we fly with our stuff on airlines. I know that you guys ask a lot of questions about this. If you have more questions, or if there's anything I didn't touch on, please hit us in the comments. Guys, like and subscribe, share with your friends. If you have any ideas or videos you want to see, especially related to, you know, traveling and stuff like that, please hit me up. Always happy to answer questions. So guys, have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you out there soon.